he desires both physical health, social health, mental health, and more so spiritual health continues in that perfection till eternity. That is what God desires for us. And this is why we are having the wake-up call during this week of prayer to show up as we live in the cities marred with diseases. Looking at the book of John, the third John. The third John talks of, Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth. Now, a backdrop of this chapter, the book of John, John 1, 2, 3, and more so the book of John 3, and particularly this letter. John wrote it. This is John, one of the disciples of Jesus Christ, the brother of James, the sons of Zebedee, who were among the 12 disciples of Christ. John took up the call and desired to spread the gospel amidst corruption, amidst persecution, and all that. So John planted a church. John planted a church in Asia. And by the time he was writing this epistle, this letter, John was already in exile in Patmos. And so, while in Patmos, he was praying to the brethren in Asia who are also living in the city. And more so, praying for the faithful who remain true to spreading the gospel and living the faith of Jesus Christ, that they may continue amidst challenges that they were facing, amidst persecutions, amidst all that. He kept praying for them, and when he heard of what had happened to the church in Asia, where somebody was actually also working hard to antagonize the church that was already planted. So John writes a letter to Gatius, this man Gatius, who by the time John was being taken into exile is the one who remained in charge of the church in Asia. And so, because of the persecutions and the challenges they were facing, Gatius resolved to holding fellowships and ordinances in his home. So his home became a church. And one of the church members was overtaken by envy. And so was conspiring now to take the leadership of the church, to serve his personal interests. And so John, while in Patmos, heard of this, and he wrote this letter and hoped that this letter got to Gatius, and indeed it did. And so he was writing to them, encouraging them that you need to show up in times of trouble. Because there is this one person who does not want the gospel to be spread in the city. The church is already planted, and it is not us, but God himself who planted the church in Asia, who has to see it grow to the level even unto eternity. So take charge, encouraging Gatius and even the church members to hold on to the faith, to hold on to the ministry, to hold on to evangelism, that nothing should make them stop at evangelizing. Nothing should make them stop at holding fellowships with one another. Nothing should make them stop manifesting the love of Christ, that is upholding human dignity, supporting one another at that level, taking care of the orphans, taking care of the widows, and all that. So when John was writing this, John did not know that it would be at such a time when congregation in Kahawa Sukari, the youths in Kahawa Sukari, the parents in Kahawa Sukari would also be facing such challenges living in the city. During those days, probably it was just a handful in the cities. Now, even Nairobi city, when it was being planned, the expansion that has taken place is just amazing. But there are still more who are coming into the city. And so, the city is overstretched. The city is overstretched. And that is why you would find diseases. That's such challenges emanating from overpopulation. Diseases like tuberculosis that are so contagious, especially overcrowding. The air pollution, water pollution, food contamination and poisoning. All this is spoiling the life in the city. But then, what are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? Are we going to run into the countryside, all of us, that we leave the city, yet there is still work to be done in the city? Not only fending for ourselves, not only getting better opportunities, employment opportunities, not only getting advancement in our education, but more so we are in these cities at such a time to carry on with the gospel, to carry on with evangelism, to carry on with manifesting the love of Christ, fellowshipping with one another in the big cities where people don't care about one another. You would be in this city, you don't even know your neighbor. How long ago did you interact with your neighbor? There is no social life in the city. Do you know the name of your neighbor? Do you know where your neighbor comes from? We are all Nairobians, that is all we know. Everybody mind your business. I also mind mine. Interact by chance. We thank God for it. That is how we live in the big city. But we are called upon to be wary of those challenges, the diseases, the challenge may not have control over. But God has given us the power. God has given us the stamina. God has given us the ability to still uphold his righteousness and the faith that he has called us to amidst all those hassles and tussles and the races with life in the big cities. And so, God is calling each and every one of us, and God is desiring that we live